Hi all, this is Simone Rich, and this is section 6 of the Most Holy TRINOSOPHIA. I turned aside and noticed an immense palace, the base of which rested on clouds. Its mass was composed of marble, and its form was triangular. 4 tiers of columns were raised one above the other. A golden ball topped the edifice. The first tier of columns was white, the second black, the third green, and the last one a brilliant red. I intended, after having admired this work of immortal artists, to return to the place of the altar, the bird and the torch. I desired to study them further. They had disappeared, and with my eyes I was searching for them when the doors of the palace opened. A venerable old man came forth, clad in a robe like mine, except that a golden sun shone on his breast. His right hand held a green branch, the other upheld a censer. A wooden chain was about his neck, and a pointed tiara like that of Zoroaster covered his white head. He came toward me, a benevolent smile on his lips. "Adore God," said he to me in Persian. "It is He who sustained thee in thy trials. His Spirit was with thee. My son, thou hast let slip by the opportunity. Thou couldst have seized instantly the bird, the torch, and the altar. Thou wouldst have become altar, bird, and torch at one and the same time. Now, in order to arrive at the most secret place of the palace of sublime sciences, it will be necessary for thee to pass through all byways. Come, I must first of all present thee to my brothers." He took me by the hand and led me into a vast hall. The eyes of the vulgar cannot conceive the form and richness of the ornaments which embellished it. 360 columns enclosed it on all sides. Suspended from a golden ring in the ceiling was a cross of red, white, blue, and black. In the center of the hall was a triangular altar composed of the 4 elements. On its 3 points were placed the bird, the altar, and the torch. "Their names are now changed," said my guide. "Here the bird is called, and there are Hebrew letters but without Masoretic vowel points, so I don't know how to read that out. The altar and the torch and the hall is called, and the triangular altar. Around the altar were placed 81 thrones, to each of which one mounted by 9 steps of an equal height, the threads being covered with red carpets. While I was examining the thrones, a trumpet sounded, whereupon the doors of the hall swung upon the hinges to let pass 79 persons, all attired like my guide. Slowly they came near and seated themselves on the thrones, while my guide stood beside me. An old man, distinguished from his brothers by a purple mantle, the hem of which was covered with embroidered characters, arose, and my guide, addressing them in the sacred tongue, said, "Behold, one of our children, whom it is the will of God to make as great as his fathers." "May the will of the Lord be done," responded the old man, and turning to me he added, "My son, the time of thy physical trials is now ended. There remain long journeys for thee to undertake. Henceforth thy name shall be. Before thou visit this edifice, each of my 8 brothers and myself will present thee with a gift." He walked up to me, and with the kiss of peace gave me a cube of grey earth called. The second gave me 3 cylinders of black stone called. The third a small piece of rounded crystal called. The fourth a crest of blue plumes named. The fifth added a silver vase, which carries the name of. The sixth gave me a cluster of grapes, known by the sages under the name of. The seventh presented me with the figure of a bird, similar in its form to, but it had not its brilliant hues, it was of silver. "It has the same name," he said to me. It is for thee to give it the same virtues. The eighth gave me a small altar, resembling the altar. Finally, my guide placed in my hand a torch composed like of brilliant particles. However, it was not lighted. It is for thee, he added, like those that have preceded it, to give it the same virtues. Reflect on these gifts, then said the chief sage. They all lead equally to perfection, but none of them is perfect in itself. It is from their admixture that the divine product must come. Know also that all of them are null if thou employ them not in the order in which thou hast received them. The second, which serves for the use of the first, remains merely crude matter without warmth and without usefulness, unless in its turn it is aided by that which comes after it. Guard carefully the gifts thou hast received, and set out upon thy journeys after thou hast drunk from the cup of life. Hereupon he handed me in a crystal cup a shining liquor of saffron hue. Its taste was delicious, and it emitted an exquisite aroma. I was about to hand the cup back to him, after moistening my lips in the liquor, when the old man said, "Drink it all. It will be thy only nourishment during thy journeys." I obeyed and felt a divine fire course through all the fibers of my body. I was stronger, braver, even my intellectual powers seemed doubled. I hastened to give the greeting of the wise men to the august assembly. I was about to leave, and at my guide's command I entered a long gallery on my right hand. So this was a long section, and now its explanation. Firstly, the explanation of its image. The altar, which our author describes as being composed of the four elements, is triangular in shape. From this circumstance, two sacred numbers are produced. The square 4 plus the triangle 3 equals 7, and the four elements of the altar multiplied by the triangle equals 12. From this, the composition of the world is made apparent. Nature is a triangular arrangement of four elements, and the divine world, of which the zodiac is a proper symbol, consists of these elements multiplied 3 times, or in their 3 primary states. The altar is the human body. Its material parts, the square, are arranged in the spiritual order, a triangle. Upon the altar are the 3 symbols from the previous diagram. They are so placed as to form a triangle, and we must understand them as salt, sulfur, and mercury, body, spirit, and soul. In the air above the altar is the crux ansata, the symbol of generation and fecundity. This may be considered as copper, the metal of Venus, and a symbol of the reproductive energy of the soul. Venus is the Lucifer of the ancients, the light bearer, the star of self-knowledge. This symbol must remind the sage that the power to multiply is common to both the internal and external man. As bodies generate bodies, so the inner body, the soul, generates the archetypes of personalities. It is told that those who achieve adeptship, they never die, they are immortal, they have completely merged with their higher self, so they are no longer personalities, but they can create and use personalities, and they can reincarnate whenever they want to. Like it's told in Hinduism that Krishna can reincarnate as whatever personality it wishes to incarnate. It's the same as Buddhahood, Christhood. It's the same thing. By alchemy, wisdom perpetuates itself by applying to its own peculiar purposes the same laws by which forms are perpetuated in the corporeal sphere. The whole figure is a symbol of spiritual generation, the mystery of Melchizedek, who is his own father and his own mother, and is above the law. It sets forth perpetual re-energization by the use of the stone. It tells of the very power which Saint Germain himself possessed of continuing from century to century by means of the subtle elixir, the secret of which was known only to himself and his masters. First, the three parts of the composite man, spirit, soul, and body must be brought into equilibrium, and from this equilibrium is born the homunculi or crystal man. This man is an immortally generating ego, capable of precipitating personalities at will, yet itself unchanged by these personalities and unlimited by them. Instead of the soul living in the body imprisoned by its limitations, a new condition is established. The body lives in the soul. To the adept, the physical form is but an instrument for the expression of consciousness, intelligence, and action, represented by the candle, the bird, and the burning altar. So for them, they know that they are not bodies. They have merged with their higher selves, and they just control bodies as tools, like you would control any other tool. Now, analysis of the text. This part contains some of the most beautiful symbolism in the entire manuscript. The candidate, having transcended the four elements, now continues into the sphere of higher causations, where he is instructed in the great Kabbalistic principles by which the universal integrity is preserved. The palace is the archetypal sphere, Plato's world of ideas. The simple geometric arrangement reveals the divine harmony. The doors of the archetypal world swing open, and the hierophant of the order comes forth. It is he who was called the master of the hidden house, the initiator, the keeper of the keys of Thoth. Alchemy is a religion of fire, as is also Zarathustrism. The Magus, therefore, wears insignias of Zoroaster and speaks in the language of the fire prophet. The names which the Hierophant gives to the bird, the torch, and the altar are the same as those given in the preceding section. In company with the initiator, the candidate enters the immense temple, whose 360 columns leave no doubt as to its identity with the universe. The altar already described, being the threefold cause of the material sphere, is placed in the center of the great hall. The Hierophant next informs the disciple as to the new names which have been bestowed upon the sacred objects. The bird is called Amphircha, which is interpreted to mean that a mother shall bear the likeness, or double. This is a reference to the Immaculate Conception and to the secret doctrine as the mother of the adepts. The name for the altar appears to be the word for priest, but refers to the initiator, as the one through whom the disciple is born in the second or philosophic birth, a mystery more fully explained in the name of the torch. The hall is called sky, the firmament, but involves in the formation of its characters the Kabbalistic admonition, worship the glory which is to come. The triangular altar is Asanor, a self-seething digesting furnace used by alchemists. But the word may be divided into two. The first part then means immortality, and the second, the four quarters of the heavens. The 81 thrones, placed within the palace of the sky, each at the top of 9 steps, are of great significance. The Rosicrucian mysteries consisted of 9 lesser and 3 greater rites or degrees, a system which may be traced directly to the Kabbalah. Out of Keter, the universal crown, issue the 9 Sephiroth, and from each of these in turn issue 9 others. 9 is the sacred number of man, and in the old Kabbalah, Adam is the numerical equivalent of 4 and 40. There is a letter R here, but it's probably something else. It's probably a mistake. Numbers whose sum is 9, so that would have to be 441. Yeah, it would be 1, 4, and 40, and it's probably, if you add them without the 0, as the way sometimes it's added in numerology, that would make 9, so I assume it would be 1440. The symbolism of the 9 is continued throughout mystical literature. The Eleusinian mysteries were given in 9 nocturnal ceremonials to represent the months of the prenatal epoch. By Kabbalistic addition, 81 equals 9, and the throne signified the 81 branches growing upon the great world tree. The schools of the lesser mysteries are patterned from the universal harmony, and here we see set forth the arrangement of the secret brotherhood. The name for the great hall is repeated in the text at the point where the venerable members of the school enter and take their seats. The disciple receives his philosophical name. He is called the wise man, and the words mean to be the face or manifestor of the Most High. The 9 masters of the lodge then bestow their gifts. The first gives a cube of grey earth, representing the element of earth, the second 3 cylinders of black stone, the 3 phases of the moon, the third a round crystal, Mercury, the fourth a crest of blue plumes, Venus, the fifth a silver vase, the Sun, the sixth a cluster of grapes, Mars, the seventh a bird, Jupiter, the eighth a small altar, Saturn, and the 9th a torch, fixed stars. For the understanding of the significance of these gifts, consider the following fragments from the Piamander of Hermes, relative to the accession of the soul through the 9 spheres and its return to the lords of each of these spheres, the gifts or limitations which are imposed by the laws of generation. After the lower nature has returned to the brutishness, the elements, the higher struggles again to regain its spiritual estate. It ascends the 7 rings upon which sit the 7 governors, and returns to each their lower powers in this manner. Upon the first ring sits the moon, and to it is returned the ability to increase and diminish. Upon the second ring sits Mercury, and to it are returned machinations, deceit and craftiness. Upon the third ring sits Venus, and to it are returned the lusts and passions. Upon the fourth sits the Sun, and to this lord are returned ambitions. Upon the fifth ring sits Mars, and to it are returned rashness and profane boldness. Upon the sixth ring sits Jupiter, and to it are returned the sense of accumulation and riches. And upon the 7th ring sits Saturn at the gate of chaos, and to it are returned falsehood and evil plotting. Then, being naked of all the accumulations of the 7 rings, the soul comes to the 8th sphere, namely the ring of the fixed stars. Here, freed of all illusion, it dwells in the light and sings praises to the Father in a voice which only the pure of spirit may understand. So in quite a few cultures you find this being told in different ways, that planets gave us really negative influences, and we can only escape from their influences and ascend when we no longer allow ourselves to those influences to rule us. And there is also a work called A Woman in the Moon, which is a very old work. I forgot its author. And it also talks that it was specifically about females, but it talked that each planet imparted some kind of negative quality upon creation of the woman. So to ascend, according to quite a few of such ancient traditions, one should give up all the negative qualities that 7 planets imparted on us. And then we can ascend to the ring of the fixed stars. The name of the cube of grey earth relates to the mystery of the spiritual birth. That of 3 black cylinders is selflessness. is selflessness. That of the rounded crystal signifies the end of the ages or the cycles. That of the blue plumes is Aquarius, or the leg of the great man. That of the silver vase is the birth of the spirit. That of the grapes is regeneration. That of the bird, they who live in the light or truth. That of the altar, the fruitage of virtue, or ultimate good. And that of the torch, the springing forth, the Egyptian coming forth by day, the completion, the ninth mystery. That the torch is really a symbol of the sphere of the fixed stars and of the corresponding strata of the human soul is further proved by the fact that the manuscript tells us that it's composed of brilliant particles. The mastery of the 9 parts of the soul constitutes the completion of the lesser mysteries and the full control of all bodily faculties, functions, and powers. One is total control of the body. The 3 greater mysteries lie beyond and are still symbolized by the bird, the torch, and the light. The lesser mysteries are rituals of self-control and purification. The greater mysteries are rituals of creation. It's so beautifully said, because many people, they want to possess the knowledge of how to control, how to create according to the hidden laws of the universe and so forth, but they will not get that knowledge because they're not ready. First, one has to purify oneself and totally be in control of oneself before he's ready to be disclosed such mysteries. In 9 processes, man purifies himself, but only to the few are given the keys of the threefold creative mystery: the creation of form, the creation of thought, and the creation of consciousness. Before leaving the chamber of initiation, the candidate drinks of the water of life, the nectar of the gods, which is explained by the philosophers as representing the blood of the Logos or the Sun, the divine energy which sustains the elect, and which is constantly flowing in the grail of the mysteries. According to the Greeks, the gods partake of no mortal food, but are nourished from the fountains of eternal good, which spring up in the midst of the worlds. Having given the secret sign to the adepts, the new initiate departs from the chamber by the right-hand path. So this is the end of section 6. In the next video, I'll read out section 7. Thank you for watching. Take care.